Hello and welcome back. My name's Matthew and today we're going to be having a look at how to get the most out of your banjolele. Whether you play a vintage instrument like this one or a more modern example, there are lots of things that you can do to keep your banjolele in check. Especially if you're used to a ukulele, a sort of traditional wooden instrument, you might not necessarily be aware of some of the differences between a ukulele and a banjo and how you can get the most out of your banjolele and actually sort of have it as a proper unique addition to your collection rather than just a sort of different looking and sounding ukulele, if that makes sense. We're going to be having a look at 5 different things that you can do to get the most out of your banjolele. And we're going to start off with a pretty basic but important one now, and that is the topic of strings. Time and time and again, I see people putting ukulele strings on their banjolele, and they sound fine. But I think really that you should be using some dedicated banjolele strings. I've got a couple of packs here. This is bright tone banjolele strings, and I've got some gali ones here. Not quite sure how you say it. I've got more details on these strings in the video that's linked in the description or on the card in the corner there. So do check that video out if you want to learn more about the different types of banjolele strings. But generally speaking, banjolele strings are catered much more to that bright, crisp, sharp attack that the banjolele is well known for, rather than necessarily a warm, fluffy, mellow sound that a ukulele string gives you. Of course, with that warm, fuzzy tone, that's exactly what you want for a traditional ukulele. But if you put that on a banjolele, an instrument that's designed to be loud and proud and sort of crisp and sharp, then the two kind of don't really mix. The instrument wants to give a punchy, snappy sound, but it's not being allowed to because those warm, relaxed, fuzzy strings are sort of holding it back a little bit. So get yourself some banjolele strings and you'll get a sound that's really crisp and powerful, and you'll have a much better sounding instrument, all just by changing the strings. Now let's move on to the second thing, which is the head of the banjo itself. Now, I believe you can call these vellums as well, although some places I've read say that it's only called a vellum technically if it's made out of animal skin. You can either get calf skin vellums or plastic heads as well. There's plenty to choose from, but it's really important to A, get a banjolele specific one, and B, to make sure that it's at the right tension, the right sort of hardness, if you like. Let's talk about size first, because size does matter in this case. A traditional banjo will have an 11-inch head, maybe a 12-inch head, and typically a banjolele will have about 8 inches or so. Now, the plastic ones come pre-formed in a specific size, and if you get a normal banjo head that's 11 or 12 inches, it's just simply going to be too big for your banjolele. So you should try and get a banjolele one. But the problem with that approach is that there aren't too many of those out on the market. If you go for a calfskin vellum, these are totally flexible and you can cut them to the size you need. So get a big one of those and then you can trim off the excess once it's on here. I also tend to prefer the sound of calfskin vellums anyway. I think they sound a bit more natural and punchy and clear, whereas the plastic ones can be a little bit floppy and saggy. That said, that's more than my experience, but I know you can get some great plastic ones out there, probably at the higher end of the price point, which I've just simply not tried yet. But I'm quite happy with what I have at the moment, especially the calfskin ones. They'll last years and years and years. I changed this one myself and it is a little bit of a long process. It took me about 2 months because you have to soak it and then let it dry and tighten it up every so often. And that brings me on to the second part of this point, actually, keeping the vellum nice and tight. If you want a crisper, sharper, louder sound, you've got to have a tight vellum. Of course, if you overdo it, you'll split it, and then you've got to start all over again. But I see loads of banjoleles with vellums and heads that are just really saggy and loose, and not many people are aware that you can tighten them up. And that's what these hooks are for. Sometimes you'll need a hex drive, or maybe a screwdriver, a spanner, whatever you need, but maybe just try adjusting the tension on your banjolele head. Sometimes they go loose anyway, so even if you had a very tight one, it may have come loose, so just give it a little tweak. You only really should be doing it a quarter turn every day or so, so do make sure it's a gradual thing. You don't want to do to put too much stress on it, and if you can as well, you want to be doing opposite pegs, so going like this around rather than just doing it clockwise like that, or anti-clockwise I think that was, but you know what I mean. Instead of doing them next door neighbours, do them opposites. That way you'll have a much better approach of tightening a banjolele head. Hi, this is the Formby Fundamentals course. This is the course for you if you've never played George Formby before, or maybe just a little bit and you're feeling a little bit lost, and by the end of the course you'll be able to play a coherent George Formby style solo. Through 2 hours of videos split up across 40 lessons and 7 modules, this is a step-by-step guide from getting you from zero to being able to play a really great sounding George Formby solo. So head over to matthewquilliam.co.uk to begin your ukulele journey today. The next thing I want to talk about is a pickup. Now, banjo pickups in general can be a bit fiddly. With a ukulele pickup, we've got the top of the top board of the sound box. That is obviously permanent, but on a banjo, the head is not. That's totally replaceable, and so it's a little bit harder to commit to sticking something right under the bridge to catch the instrument's sound. Furthermore, if you do attach something to the bridge, you can muffle the sound. Yes, you can get pickups that stick on the underside, you've got to take the back off and stick it on, or you can get some that slide underneath the feet of the bridge, but both of those in my experience do muffle the sound, and so I tend to prefer this pickup, which is a Myers pickup. Myers do a lot of instrument pickups, sort of for instruments that don't normally have pickups. And this one I really liked because it's got this gooseneck there. This is, I think, is a 6-inch gooseneck that you sort of have aiming towards the bridge. And then this little box as well with a sound control and then an input jack as well. And then it simply clips on there and it doesn't sort of add too much weight. And I can just take it off again. It's just held on with a few cable ties. So it doesn't impact the sound in any way, but you have a great microphone quality pickup that you can then simply plug into an amp and play like any other ukulele or guitar. Some of you may think, why would I want to make a banjolele even louder? Well, it's important to me. I really like the sound of the banjolele, and when I'm performing, I need all my instruments to be coming through the same source. And even though a banjolele is loud, I still want it to be consistent with my other instruments, which do go through an amp or a PA anyway. So by having this pickup, this is more for consistency and projection, rather than necessarily because I want to sort of, overpower an audience with a great big whack of banjolele sound coming at them. Let's talk now about technique, and I'm actually going to switch over to a traditional ukulele to start with. Most people who play the banjolele start off with a ukulele, and when we learn the ukulele, we typically learn of the sweet spot, a nice place to strum. Typically this is right in the middle of the string, which will be the 12th fret, or where the neck meets the body. This is a really warm spot that you can strum your strings in. It creates a nice, really beautiful, mellow sound, but is also sort of very characteristic of that ukulele pluckiness that we all love so much. I'll switch back to my banjolele now. And again, I want to consider the sound of the banjolele that we're going for. If we do pluck at the 12th fret, that's all the way over here. And not only are we contradicting ourselves by trying to produce a warm, mellow sound on an instrument that wants to be loud and sharp, but also we've got a lot of arm covering the front of the banjolele, covering the head. Even if you're not touching it, the fact that your arm is there will muffle it slightly, and it's likely that you will have some arm actually touching the head, and again, that's going to muffle the sound. So it's a good idea, I'd say, to actually try and practice strumming a bit further back on the string set. Not too close to the bridge, but I'd say right at the far edge of the head here. I've actually got a little mark you might be able to see from where I've been wearing away the dye on this thing, but this is where I strum on the banjolele, a bit further back, to help reinforce that sharp sound and not to muffle the head too much. The last thing I want to talk about is string intonation. This is how in tune a string is up the neck. If we think about a traditional ukulele for a minute, we know that the bridge is held in place by glue. There's no moving that, that's just where that is. But on a banjo, we don't typically glue our bridges down, they're just held in by the tension of the strings. This means that it can move over time occasionally, especially like I said earlier, sometimes the head can warp a little bit, a tiny bit obviously, but that might be enough to offset the bridge. And perhaps as well, when you receive the instrument, you sometimes find that the bridges are flat pat, they're flat down, and then you may have just picked it up to get it in the right height. But actually where the bridge sits on the head is a super important feature that not many people know about. The distance between the bridge and the 12th fret has to be equal to the 12th fret to the nut. That 12th fret is right in the middle of a string on any instrument. The 12, the octave, that's just the thing that is done. And so if that distance is not right, then you're going to have funny sounding notes as you go higher and higher up the neck, because the scale of the strings will be shorter or longer than the frets are designed for. But if your banjo-ukulele is actually sounding particularly out of tune, especially as you go higher up the neck, then just take a quick measurement between the bridge and the 12th fret and the 12th fret and the nut. Is it the same? And if not, then you can simply move the bridge back or forth a little bit. Sometimes loosening the strings will help you move it a little bit more. And then I would draw with pencil around the bridge. I've actually got some pencil markings here so that I can see if the bridge has been knocked out of place. I can simply slide it back to where it needs to be. With a lot of these things, it's simply a case of try different things and see what happens. Your head, tightening it up, maybe you're not a fan, you liked it the way it was, that's fine, tune it down. Try lots of different strings, different pickups, all sorts of things. With a banjolele, and just banjos in general, these seem to require a lot more maintenance and upkeep than any other instrument, just because of all the different moving parts that are in these things. But if you know where to start, then that means that you're one step closer to being able to fine-tune your instrument and get the most out of your purchase. So there we are. I hope that helped. If you're interested in learning all about playing the George Formby style of banjolele, I now have 2 online courses that are available for you to go and watch. You'll find links to both of those in the description below, and then you'll find another video all about playing the banjolele right here, right now, which you can watch for free. So I'll see you over there.